Everybody, we're going to get started with our agenda. So if you could please find a seat. Feel free to get food if you haven't, but we're going to start with I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:03. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay. The posting of the agenda has been completed.
Yes.
Okay. Any changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay. We're going to proceed to public comment. Are there any members wishing to make any public comment? No members of the public that would like to make a public comment? Okay, we're gonna move along to the consent calendar. Is there anything you wanted to point out, Jackie?
No. I have approval.
Okay, we have a motion, second.
Yeah, I have questions for.
Okay, B.
Yes, so on the Fourth Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement with Blackhawk Planning, there's nothing in there that indicates whether this, oh, sorry, thank you, whether the additional $10,000 to the budget, is that something that where the funds are coming from? And whether you know, we have these funds already, or if this budget amendment would cumulatively require a membership dues increase from all the other budget amendments that have been made.
Are you talking about item C? The one,
Whatever the Fourth Amendment. Yeah, item C, correct.
item C is a contract with Blackhawk Planning to help us with the General Assembly. They raise the funds for the General Assembly, that comes out of the proceeds from the General Assembly. The $10,000 would not by itself require us to raise fees.
Okay, but I know we have these things that come up. It would be nice to know, like, for each of these, like where the funds are coming from. Is it within budget? If it's outside of budget,
We always let you know if it's outside of budget.
it's always what?
We would always let you know if it was outside of budget. These are all within budget.
Okay, it does say it adding an additional $10,000 to the budget, and it wasn't clear.
Oh, it should probably say to her contract.
Okay, and all right, so that would just be nice just to know, yeah, the source, because these things come up cumulatively, and then at the end, when we have our budget meeting, then all of a sudden we find out that there's been, this is what we've actually spent, and it's maybe over budget, or it's, or now we have to increase dues. So that's the kind of thing I would be nice to be able to monitor as we go along, to know if something is within budget or it's over budget, and how we're gonna get the money.
We will always let you know if it's out of budget. And I apologize that we didn't say contract instead of budget, because this was it's all within the budget.
Contract budget.
Okay. And then on another item I have questions on, this would be item D, with the contract for legal services. And obviously it's great. It provides that Mike Jenkins and services, which are amazing because he used to be our city attorney, are being provided pro bono. But they're all, obviously there are rates for other BBK lawyers. So it probably, because as what happened with us, if he doesn't have the expertise, he has to go to someone in BBK to get the information. So, and those rates are listed, are reasonable for the task, but there is in the contract, it only requires the executive director approval for legal services. So, and I understand that in the past, when it raises, Jackie says, well, I know he's come back and asked the board for this. And I'm not disputing that, but I think as an attorney, it's always good because, you know, we always hope Jackie will forever be our executive director, but there would come a time that you might want to retire. And so we should have protocols in place just so that we know this. So I don't know what that protocol is, but given that this contract provides for the executive director has the sole discretion under that contract to approve additional services, which would include litigation, which could be very expensive. It would be important to know how that is. Is there another agreement somewhere else which requires the executive director, whoever it is, to come back to the board to authorize something that's within the contract? Because the contract itself does not require any board approval.
We have always come back, and if something like a special project, a litigation, when we decide to do something new, like with the South Bay Fiber Network, we always come back and talk about that particular project with the board. I am not authorized to just tell the attorney to venture out on something. And so we're very careful about that. And I'm not sure that I know that where a written policy would be on that. It's just, I don't have the authority to do that.
Well, it would be helpful, yeah, to have that come back with staff or something, if they do have, if there is a written policy that requires the board approval, because these, obviously, those costs per the contract could really exceed
We would never exceed the budget without coming back to the board.
Right.
So, and that's your cap. I mean,
That's the cap.
this is all new for us because Mike, for what, 25 years has given us free services, and now he's retired, so he has to charge the other services that are specialty services. So this is new. And we have a budget. We put in the budget, I think, $50,000 for legal services. That money we're very, very mindful of. About 3 of us every month inspect all of their invoices, and they're for existing projects. If we pick a new project, we would come to the board and say, this project includes this amount of legal services. So it's part of our normal process.
Okay. Well, yeah, it would be helpful then to have that written document, because that's all I was asking for. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Can we take the vote?
Got a motion by Stakura.
Yes.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Yep.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm gonna go to the podium because we are going to give recognition to our volunteers. Everybody's here for, right? I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us as we honor the incredible volunteers of the South Bay Cities Council of Government during the month of Thanksgiving. My name is Bernadette Suarez, and I have the privilege of serving as chair of the South Bay Cities Council of Government, as well as council member for the city of Lawndale. I'm very proud that the cities of the South Bay have placed such a high priority on adopting and leading by example in sustainable policies and programs. The support of our volunteers plays a critical role in extending our reach, helping us spread the word about energy efficiency, water conservation, shared mobility options, and recycling individuals, businesses, and public agencies across the region. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that this is printed right. Yes, okay. Currently, we have 25 active volunteers, and since 2008, more than 300 volunteers have contributed over 20,000 hours of service. We're also pleased to see our numbers of active volunteers. Yes, round of applause. We're also pleased to see our number of active volunteers growing again. There's no way we could have achieved or maintained our extensive programs without the dedication of our volunteers. And in this month of Thanksgiving, we take the time to say thank you. Over the past year, our volunteers have assisted with a variety of crucial tasks, including climate action implementation, attending community outreach events and workshops, meetings, support, data entry, providing information on transportation options, and environmental programs. They have also supported our partners through the Speakers Bureau by conducting research and following up with organizations. As you can see, our volunteers are integral to everything we do, and we take this opportunity to let them know that by recognizing them tonight. Before we introduce our volunteers, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge some special guests in attendance. So I have from the office of Senator Adam Schiff's office, Patricia Horton. Is she here virtually? Okay. Here in spirit. Okay. And I know earlier, we had Edward Feves from Ben Allen's office, from Senator Ben Allen's office. I think he may have left. But thank you for him for joining us. From US Congresswoman Maxine Waters' office, Hamilton Cloud, I did just see you there. Thank you for joining us. From US Congressman Ted Lieu's office, Joey. Oh, here we go, Joey. Thank you. From State Assembly Member Tina McKinner's office, Lakeisha Bryant. Okay. And we'd also like to thank, for those that dropped off certificates from State Assembly Member Al Marsucci's office, State Assembly Member Josh Salento's office, and State Assembly Member Mike Gibson's office. And now I'd like to welcome those members from our local agencies. I see, okay, Lance Jerome from the city of El Segundo, Rodney Tanaka from the beautiful city of Gardena. I don't see Mark. Alex Montero, city of Hawthorne, Mayor Pro Tem, I should say. Ray Jackson, council member for the city of Hermosa Beach. And Dean Francois from the city of Hermosa Beach. Welcome. I don't see. Craig Quinn, council member from Palos Verdes Estates. I don't see. Zane came. Oh, hey Zane. Zane Obaji, city of Redondo Beach. B. Derringer, city of Rolling Hills. Debbie Segura from Rolling Hills Estates. John Kaji, city of Torrance. And Jennifer Lork from LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn, District 4. Irma, sorry. Irma from District 2, LA County. Thank you. Partners with us this evening, I have, is Robert Kathman here from the Water Replenishment District Director. Okay. Okay, Janelle, also from the Water Replenishment District. Okay. Gus Mesa from West Basin Municipal Water District. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Thank you, everybody that came in attendance. I also want to acknowledge the South Bay Cities Council of Government staff who have been responsible for the wonderful slideshow that has been running behind us, which I hope you're enjoying. And of course, Jackie, we couldn't do anything without you. We do hope you'll be here forever. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Jackie Backrack, the Executive Director, to introduce the COG staff here this evening.
Thank you. Yeah, I do expect to be here forever, and I expect the staff to stay as well. We have Kim Fuentes, who's the Deputy Executive Director. I don't see Laura. Laura's okay. Laura Gurgis is our Administrative Officer. David Leisure, who our Program Manager. You might want to save your clause. Ronson Chu, working in homeless services. Addie Angelaya, also working in homeless. And I'm going to do an early introduction. We have a brand new 2-week-old member of that team, Maroli Vasquez. Maroli. And the fourth member of that team is Kevin Umanya. We're delighted to have Zoran Trifuna. And on that same team, which is our outreach and energy team, Katie Segovia. And Cy works on our transportation team over there. Taking all the pictures is Colleen Farrell. And is Sean, I don't see Sean here. Sean? Oh, there's Sean. Sean Fujioka, it works on the energy team and climate action. And then doing a little bit of everything is Jake Romoff. Transportation and fiber and energy. Christina Martinez is our Oh, she's cleaning upstairs. She's administrative assistant. Somebody who we all owe a lot of thank you to is Andrea Mulligan, who put a lot of this together today. And then we've been so fortunate to have super luck with Civic Spark Fellows. Several of the people I introduced came to us from Civic Spark, but we have 3 brand new Civic Spark Fellows, and they're in the same mold. And that's Addie Obley, who's working on communications. Erin Ruiz, who's working on transportation. And our last Civic Spark Fellow, Megan Hirsch, could not be here tonight. Also acknowledging, you've met everybody. The people that aren't here are Wally Simbad, our research director, Eleanor Murphy, who is working off-site for us now and doing a lot of our special events and energy work, and Kathy Hetzer, who helps out with senior services and homelessness. So that's our team, and some of you have been around a long time, and we just keep growing and growing, but we keep doing more and more, and hopefully better and better. So tonight, in addition to recognizing all of our volunteers, we're providing special recognition to a very few special volunteers who for their outstanding service hours. And we want to get to that right away. We recognize the annual and cumulative contributions of our volunteers. The annual contribution is based on 11 months from January to November, and it includes the total number of hours they've worked in the current year. This year, we have 6 volunteers who are receiving this special annual and cumulative service award. And these 6 volunteers, those that live in the South Bay, are being honored by their city that they live in as well. So we want to get started. And I, up in the corner there, you'll see we have gifts for the volunteers, for all of our volunteers. And we also have some certificates for our specially recognized volunteers. So when your name is called, please come up and let us give you those awards. And then at the very end, we ask all the volunteers to come up for a picture. So the first 2 volunteers unfortunately could not be here this evening. They worked at least 50 hours for us, and they are getting what we call our Valued Volunteer Award. One is Noel Kaufman from Palos Verdes Estates, who started with us on October 2024, and Caroline Hanna from Manhattan Beach, who started in December of 2024. And we're going to be giving them a certificate of appreciation, from the COG, as well as the letters of appreciation from our legislators, which we thank you very much, and also a gift card that they will have to spend and hopefully remember us with something fun to buy. So you've seen them on the scrolling screen, and I'll go on to the next awards. Our next special volunteer awardee is here and has worked more than 100 hours for us at the COG. And she is receiving the Green Ambassador Award. And that's Alex Keene from Downey. And I want to emphasize she's coming here from Downey, which is really great. She started with us in August of 2023. And for Alex, we have a certificate of, you want to go over with him? We have a certificate of appreciation from the COG, as well as the letters and a $25 gift card. So, Alex, a round of applause. Thank you. And while we're recognizing Alex, I'll just keep going. Our next special volunteer has worked for us for over 200 hours this year at the COG. And that person is a Sustainability Champion of the Year award. And we don't have these events without this person. She's sort of a staple for us. And that's Kathy Young from Torrance. She started in September of 2009. She's been with us for so many years, and she is just the most wonderful and reliable and helpful person. So we have letters again and our certificate and a gift card for Kathy. Thank you. Kathy's a veteran at this now. Let's give Kathy a big round of applause. Those are our annual award.
While I make the Hasselback.
You know, with COVID, we took a real hit in our volunteer program, obviously, and it's really coming back. And so we hope that next year we'll have even more annual awardees, but we are getting more and more volunteers, and we're very excited about that. But we still have our cumulative milestone awards. And before we get that, I want to highlight that these words don't just represent hours, but years of commitment, reliability, and service to our community. They've consistently, these volunteers, along with Kathy, have consistently shown up, supported our programs, and helped advance our sustainability efforts. So I want to recognize a volunteer who's done extremely special work for us, and that's our Brown Sustainability Leader awardee, Nathan Esser from Torrance. Nathan started with us in 2023 and has done a really great job. Nathan does a lot of data work at the office, and he's going to receive all of those pieces of paper and a $50 gift card as well. And then there's another person who also we could not have one of these awards, I think, without. She's just done an incredible job at the COG, and we want to recognize her for her extraordinary impact of over 1,500 hours of service. And so I want you to join me in honoring our very first Platinum Sustainability Leader, and that's Karen Conda from Lomita, who started with us in March of 2018. And for Karen, we're going to have a $150 gift card.
Wow.
So at this time, and you know, when you mention names, you always forget somebody, and I forgot Natalie. So Natalie Champion, I'm sorry, I forgot you. She's only worked here forever. And Natalie does all of our board assistants. And there's absolutely no way that any of this would ever have worked without Martha Segovia, who I also forgot. Because so busy doing everything. Martha is our volunteer coordinator. So at this time, I want to invite all of our volunteers up to come and receive our token of appreciation. And it's from the West Basin Municipal Water District and the South Bay COG. And it includes a fan, a wooden notebook, and a drought tolerant plant. Yes, Gus, do you want to come up too? And we'll distribute them. And then any representatives from the elected officials that would like to come up. And now, while they're doing all of that, we're gonna cheat and we're gonna do something else. We're gonna celebrate by having the cake. So if somebody could go over there and start cutting the cake, we will celebrate with our special thank you cake. I hope that everybody had a chance to see the cake. Somebody can cut the cake. So we'll take a brief interlude here to cut the cake and to take pictures.
I believe it. Appreciate it. Taxpayers. People in the back.
Yeah.
Tighter. Another set of Bernadette.
So.
Very nice.
We say cog or cheese or.
Cog on three. 1, 2, 3.
7:30.
Thank you.
That's great. You know it.
Yeah, right.
Check this out.
It's over.
You'll make a take any check you want.
Well, yeah.
So.
Yes. Yeah, well, I did it while you were doing.
Oh, okay. Charlie just volunteers.
I mean, not like, I don't know, that's just me, like, I. prefer to make it out of the head. I'm going like, I need to-
Chris came.
Yeah, well, he volunteers.
Just like the right?
No, I don't need to get into the meeting.
Oh, you must be. They're professionals.
Yeah.
I was like, darn, I said.
They kept reading these names.
I was like, last Thursday, the meetings were done like, but it's down because she was on. It was the report. My bed is moving.
Tax measure that's in place, I guess, $1 billion. Thank you.
Good.
Money in this county is the biggest bank account.
I never hear about that.
Dollars guaranteed.
I'm just like, I know she's not it. Nobody even said you.
Look, I'm like, okay, so Karen Bass was able to vote herself at $133 million. So that'll always go on your line.
Watch.
You can't take that away. They already have it in the budget. They took away even 10 million out of it. That's the only thing I think about. Whatever we agree to now. We'll never get anywhere. Just because of measure.
Oh, okay, I thought that was second. Yeah, second, third. Oh, yes, but we're not. The annex building?
The annex building, but it doesn't say that on the website. It just has the address of the annex building. And it says annex 208. So I go to get my parking permit and
Oh, yeah. You got one. Wow, that's a big one. That's really left hand.
After they run, I.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I didn't know. I would have brought it. That's just no. My God.
It'd be fun.
so.
Got him here for this place. Yeah, well, I mean, it's like.
So it's
Yeah, you guys be.
Not here.
Yeah, well,
It's like you could see it. And
They're already trying to cut us off, die, dude.
it's a whole. The guy, Detective Bureau.
Yeah.
So thanks for getting our. I think we're stopped. I think we're stopped. Want to push up.
Five last year.
It was one 150.
9,000.
You realize it was coming up.
Do it. A lot of these other ones. They make it 6 months.
Yeah. He did a better
We got jobs. Like most of us were just. Thursday, I do that, right?
That's great.
Yes, that's good. See all the, I get it from all text things, so like I would.
You're so
I
frustrated.
don't know how people do it.
It's so funny that you say that, because I. It's such
On my heart, so that's what-
And both sides, yeah.
It makes them.
It's study.
6 months, when that's, family, all like 3 states, so I do all my shopping.
Yeah.
May not have my-
Yeah, it's great. It's a good way.
Like, this is my fourth city.
Yeah, it's great to not have to deal with the meter. Put some money in it. Sure. It's just-
This is, no, this is just one of the extra duties I have. Couple different things.
Parking lot, that's the last.
They're all, I mean, my daughter's a senior in high school, my son's.
And I just.
Daughter.
A little break in action.
Yeah, so they're basically in the case, we're gonna go on presentation.
They might be.
Lots of.
I just made it pretty real. Yes.
I just had a chevron.
Get into.
Nice to see you today. All right. Condos are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically.
House.
Guys, that.
Yeah, it's a kind of programs. We fund ourselves. So the problem is. This is one of my things when I came to the forest. So basically.
One of the guys.
Where the money goes.
Got those permits as
Report
well.
that.
The different thing.
Of course, you may. Get a larger area.
No better way to keep up with it
It's also an Indian.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe.
So why is that? So basically. South of Alabama, so, but we have.
High school. I live right here. I've been at
64.
Football in high school.
Hey, 64,000.
Right after high school. She's way back home.
Side of it, all of this. This is- and that's really the problem.
I have a daughter.
So we have.
It's like.
In a presidential regular. There's no.
Everybody, we're going to get,
It's a path.
continue the meeting. So if you could,
Target, long time ago.
So it's very interesting.
$5. Really?
So, okay, so.
Triple XL. I was in San Jose.
okay, everybody, we're gonna get started with the meeting again. You can wrap up your conversations.
What's the date?
Probably Monday. Oh, Monday, okay, let me know.
Be a chill out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the cake. So,
The mean cake. Well, not so.
and feel free to get some too, because we are gonna have another presentation. We are going to have a presentation from Western States Petroleum Association about the impacts of the refinery closures in the South Bay and the state. It's my pleasure to introduce Patty Senecal from the Western States Petroleum Association. Ms. Senecal joined the WSPA in 2010 and is the senior director for Southern California. WSPA is a nonprofit trade association representing 26 companies that explore for, produce, refine, transport, and market petroleum products, natural gas, and other energy supplies in California and 5 other Western states. Prior to WSPA, she worked in trade and logistics sector. Ms. Senecal has years of experience working on legislative and regulatory issues. She represents WSPA to many business groups and chamber organizations in Southern California, She is a representative to SCAG Global Land Use Council, board member for Cal State University Long Beach USC MedTrans Center, and participates with Contract Cities Association and the League of California Cities. Ms. Nichols serves on the City Council in Seal Beach District 4. She's a Seal Beach Lion and Rotarian. Thank you so much.
Okay. Next slide. Okay, just to familiarize you with WISPA, Western States Petroleum Association, we're a nonprofit trade association. And we work in Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. And we represent major oil and gas companies who are exploring, producing, refining, and transporting and marketing petroleum and all types of energy products. Next, so what our role is, we work with our government leaders, we work with the state houses, regulators, media, and the public to share information and create inclusive dialogue about our shared energy future. And so we're dedicated to making sure that we have reliable access to petroleum products that are socially, economically, and environmentally responsible. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a video. Go ahead and play just to kind of set this up.
In a world that demands more innovation, more connection, more vision, there is one industry that stands at the intersection of power and promise. Our industry is a foundational pillar of our nation and the world. We power homes, support transportation, and shape infrastructure. We are more than crude in capacity. We are people, policy, innovation, and responsibility. We commit every day to upholding environmental standards, advancing safety, and being transparent in our operations. The stakes have never been higher, from low-carbon technology to smarter refining to rigorous climate policy engagement. We are steering toward a future where energy reliability and environmental responsibility walk hand in hand. Innovation, adaptation, leadership. We believe energy must be affordable, reliable, responsible, and safe. We ensure that policymakers, media, and the public understand the realities of our industry, the refining, the production, the transportation. We are driven by an immutable fact. Access to energy isn't optional, it's essential. As we enter a new era, we stand resilient. Oil and gas remain central to a responsible energy future. We are strong, powering recovery when disaster strikes, protecting America's national security, and keeping life moving.
Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to go quick because I know we're running behind time. Okay, so just wanted to set the stage in terms of miles and gallons by the billions. And so first corner there, in terms of vehicle miles traveled, BMT, 315 billion miles are traveled. This is within California. When you look at the next slide over, in terms of consumption, 13.6 billion gallons of gasoline are used annually. And on top of that, 3.1 billion gallons of diesel fuel, obviously with the goods movement sector that we have around us. So as of 2022, California is the largest consumer of jet fuel and second largest consumer of motor gasoline. Texas is ahead of us for gasoline consumption. And in 2022, we had 31 million registered cars and trucks in California. That number is closer to 37 million now. Huge transportation state. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of the crude that we use to make products, I thought you'd find this interesting. So California right now is ranked 7th nationally in terms of crude production. And on the far right, the pie chart, you can see that is where our crude is coming from. And in the past, it was coming out of California, Central Valley, and now we're importing more crude than ever, and it's coming from Ecuador, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Colombia, Guyana, and can't even see that far, Kazakhstan, Iraq. And so right now we're importing about 75% of the crude that we use every day to make gasoline is imported. It's amazing. And in the past, right, so right now, we're only using about, able to access 25% of our own production out of California. Next slide. So just a quick look at the industry. This data is from 2022, but in terms of number of Californians that are directly employed, that number is 148,140 that are directly employed. And I just want to make a pause here. Our refineries here in the South Bay, they have programs to take in seniors. We take in youth right out of high school, and they can go into career ladders. A lot of them are starting off at 80,000 up to 120,000 just coming into the industry. And then they're put into additional training programs. So all the refineries like to hire local, and again, taking young folks that are interested in a career ladder. This has been a great industry, generations and generations within these refineries. So in terms of the multiplier effect from that 148 number at the top, it's 536,770. That means every job is creating another job, right? So in terms of the billions of dollars that are going up to our state, our total economic output to the state of California is $338 billion that goes into our state and also our local governments here as well. And Southern California, the blue at the bottom of this chart, is by far the largest sector with 71,000 jobs. Next slide. And I want to make a pause. When we talk about jobs, we like to call them career ladder jobs, but these are jobs that have pensions. These are jobs that have health care. And so these are high-paying jobs that have health care with them and pensions. And we want people to be able to, grow through the industry and then have those benefits on the other side. So it's really important, and we're proud. We also have a veterans program and a second chancers program. And we really are proud of those facts as well. So in terms of California, California is an energy island. And what that means is the pipeline infrastructure. So we don't have crude pipelines within the major part of the United States that service California. We have very limited rail capacity coming in. And so waterborne crude is what's coming in here. And if you come into the ports or you stand on the piers, you'll see all the tankers that are moored offshore ready to come in. Another thing that you probably didn't know is California, we service Arizona and Nevada with their fuels. So Arizona is about 45% of their fuel comes from us, and then 88% of Nevada's transportation fuels. So we're supplying them with finished product. So again, it's being refined here, but goes through the pipeline. And so now the governors of both of these states, of Arizona and Nevada, have become so concerned about California's policies on the industry. They've actually written letters to Governor Newsom. There was a letter that went in, and then one of them actually, we had an assembly member that testified. He was from Arizona in a Senate hearing. It was really interesting, but they're really paying attention to our policies here because obviously fuels and fuel pricing affects them. Next slide. Okay. So what we have done at WISPA is we do a lot of research, and one of the big reports we did a year and a half ago was to look at the vulnerabilities and the risk in the California fuel supply chain. And so we used Turner Mason and company there to do a lot of research for us and look at our fuel supply and the risk. And the study focused just on the California transportation, upstream, downstream, logistics, refining, and regulatory, identifying what we call pinch points. So problems in the supply chain. Next slide. This is a high-level view of a supply chain for us. But every piece in our supply chain, there's a whole nother supply chain within that supply chain. So again, this is very simplified, but you have your food, your fuel stocks and your crude coming in. You have it coming in mostly now by tanker. It's moving into our refineries, and then outbound, we have our finished products, diesel, jet fuel, gasoline, and some other products. And then again, it goes into the transportation network. So it's a big, big supply chain. And oil and gas is one of the largest users of logistics, whether it is transporting huge projects, fuels, finished product. They are huge in supply chain and logistics. Next slide. Okay, so some high-level takeaways from this study is that California crude oil production is declined despite ample reserves. And that is because of the policies of our state not allowing permitting to go on. And that's why we're importing so much. Crude pipelines are increasingly at risk of shutting down because of the low volume that's going through them. This is important. Statewide new drilling permits are down 96% since 2019. And that's why we're seeing so much imported crude come in. Our marine facilities are increasingly congested. When these tankers come in, they have limited offloading facilities and they are very deep. And again, the drafts are important and the tides, it gets very complicated. The storage facilities, it's amazing to watch tankers offload, how fast they can do it once they get in and they hook up. This is another point I thought you'd find interesting. In the 1980s, California had over 30 refineries in the 1980s. We, at this point, only 6 major refineries that make what we call carbob, or it's a California fuel, remain in the state. So we have 6 refineries left to make fuel, to fuel 37 million cars and trucks every single day. So that's down from 16 refineries from just 10 years ago. And carbob is this gasoline blend stock where California has its own fuel standard. We have one state with a fuel standard. It's the cleanest burning gasoline in the world is right here in California. So also in terms of takeaways, California policies are making the state not investable. It is so difficult here doing business. It's becoming where companies just can't invest. Refineries require ongoing investments, and we have a hostile policy environment, and that makes it even more difficult. Next slide. Okay, I wanted to bring this up. California, as we know, we have climate targets for California, and that's a 48% reduction of greenhouse gas by 2030. That'll be here in 5 minutes, 2030, but achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. And you can see I lined through this. So there was going to be a mandate, 35% of new cars must be plug-in, hybrid electric. Anyway, at this point, the federal government has revoked, the federal government, meaning EPA, has revoked the Clean Air Act waiver for California. It's been revoked, and CARB is litigating on this. And so now this goes away until we see what the courts are going to do. And we don't know if that's 1 year, 3 years, whatever. But right now, the new car, I mean, we can sell gasoline cars, and we'll have to wait and see what the courts are going to decide. So I thought you'd find that interesting. Next thing, I want to talk about crude imports. So we are now in California, we're heavily reliant on imported crude to meet our energy demands. And so the demand has not gone away. The demand has not gone away. And in fact, it continues to be very important for us. The challenge is now we're bringing in with our foreign imports, waterborne, about 63% of our crude oil supply in 24. And then we also bring down Alaskan crude, that's about 13% of our supply. And in-state production is 23%. And it's not because we don't have the crude and the ability, we just don't have the ability to get to it. So we continue to be reliant on foreign-born imported crude. Next slide. Okay, I thought you'd, so I'm going to talk to you about the gas pump slide here. So right now, when you fuel your car, you're paying $1.32 per gallon in tax. $1.32. So you put in $10, 10 gallons of gas is how much did you just pay in tax? 10 gallons times $1.32. There you go. And then if you're putting in 20 gallons, remember, this is already your paycheck that's already been taxed, and now you're retaxed at the gas pump. And so what happens with all the taxes that are collected, they go into programs that are decided by our state. And this number will fluctuate a little bit, and I'm happy to, Jackie, send you updated numbers as we get them. But this money that's collected by our government, whether it's a state and some of it's federal, it's going into all sorts of programs at the state level. So California, what influences that cost at the pump, including the tax, is the price of the crude. Remember, we're importing crude now. And it comes by tanker, 30 days on the water. And California being an energy island, we're not connected to national pipelines. So we can't say, hey, call up the next state, send us some crude, or no, we have no crude pipelines. So we're dependent on ourselves and waterborne crude. We have our own fuel standard. And so it's not like other states make California fuel. They could, but they don't right now. So we're making our own fuel standard here. We have supply problems, infrastructure, lacking investment. And then, of course, the climate policies continue to drive cost. So a lot of that cost goes into our fuel pump pricing. Next slide. So before you play that, so what the role of the trade association is, we do a lot of education. We meet with representatives at the State House, at the regulatory agencies, just anybody we can meet with. And we really explain to them the refinery operations. We explain to them about our fuels. We have ever cleaner fuels. We have 2 refineries now in the North Bay that are only making renewable diesel. They've moved into the next level of cleaner burning gasoline and now the newer diesel. So what has happened over the last 3 years, because the price has become so expensive, we were trying to really educate people about the cost of energy. And so this happened to be something that came off one of our campaigns, just trying to get the message out about how expensive the fuels are and the energy. So we'll go ahead and just play this. And you want to bring the sound up. And I'm almost done.
You seem to want from me what I cannot give. I feel so lonesome at times. I have a dream that I wish I could live. It's burning holes in my mind. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. And I'm ready for the times to get better. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. And I'm ready for the times to get better. To get better.
So this helped us to spur on a conversation at the State House about how hard it is, the high cost of all the regulatory, the legislation, everything. And, at this point, what I will mention is on October 16th, 24, Phillips 66, that's the big refinery, Smiling Jack up on the hill, announced its plans to cease operations at LA. And they are now not refining product there. And it's horribly sad. There are 600 employees that will be having to do something else, 300 contractors. And remember, these refineries, we are huge in the community. We use the services and as many vendors as we can find for whether it's catering, office supplies, all of our, tank cleaning, lawyers, et cetera. So this isn't just a refinery shutting down and 600 people losing their jobs. This is the multiplier effect as well. And the refineries on our property tax is paying for K through 12. It's helping to pay for the schools. And so there's going to be some big adjustments, because of this change. So that is 8.66% of our state's capacity. And then we also have recently, April of this year, Valero has announced they're going to cease operations at the Benicia refinery at the end of April next year. So we're losing a second refinery. And this refinery makes the renewable diesel, which is made from animal fats. Chevron's renewable is made from soy. I mean, there's lots of new products. Sustainable aviation fuel is on the drawing board as well. But our Benicia refinery is 400 employees. And so it's just become so difficult. And when companies, these are Fortune 100s, 500s, and they don't turn on a dime, and it's long-term strategies. And so that's unfortunate. So that's almost 9%. So it looks like about 19% of our capacity. And again, the demand isn't going away. The demand is not going away. 37 million cars and trucks registered in our state. Almost 40 million people or 38 million people. So it's important that we have, let's go, do we have one more slide? It's important that we realize that oil and gas is going to be a big part of our future. One back. So here's our suggestion. And again, it's our role when we educate, not this, but that. You always go in with solutions and find opportunities. So we believe in increasing in-state production, letting us go ahead and bring that crude out of the Central Valley instead of coming in by tanker. We want more permitting. We want it streamlined. We'd like to see that. And carbon reducing projects. So carbon capture utilization is big in many industries, but Bakersfield is going to be a lead on this. And so that's where you're capturing carbon, putting it 5,000 feet under the ground, so it's not up in the air. We have renewable diesel, and then hydrogen will be coming on strong. And then, but the bottom line is with energy, and there's so many of us, but with energy, we believe it needs to be a portfolio approach to the future. We need everything, niche markets. We need all types of energy. And we believe in the electric car too. I mean, it's going to take everything moving into the future. And to keep energy affordable, because energy affects the price of everything. And then I'll step over here as a city, right? Our energy bills, whether it's utilities, whether it's water, whether it's fueling our equipment, it's definitely an increase on our budget. So affordability is a big topic now, and we'll be continuing that dialogue. So I think I'm done unless you want me to stay. I know you're behind schedule, so you can boot me off.
We're doing okay on schedule. If anybody wants to, we have time for a few questions. If anybody wants to ask. Okay, go Zane and then Ray.
Sure. We have like electrification of a lot of things in the house, right? You can no longer have fireplaces or gas stoves. I realize that's not petroleum, but how do you feel about that whole movement towards electrification of household stuff?
I think it's consumer choice. It's great.
It's required, or it's becoming.
Well, some areas, yeah.
Okay, another question then is we have in our cities in Lawndale, we have petroleum pipelines in certain areas running down, transporting. I don't know where the fuel is going and the like. There's proposed LAX, right? There's proposed construction around those pipelines. How easy is it to construct around pipelines or relocate pipelines for construction?
Not an engineer, but relocating, I would assume would be very difficult. Construction around them should be doable, because pipelines get repaired, and I'm sure your city engineer and whoever's pipeline it is, they're going to be working with you.
Okay, that's my question for now. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Does the increase in supply include offshore drilling, which is, I know the current administration is calling for opening up offshore drilling in California and 100 miles off the coast in Florida. So is that part of your better?
So I've read the same stuff today that was in the news about opening up California. But you have to also think about, these are huge corporations, and when you're looking at where you're going to invest, you're also looking at the stability of your market. And so again, this is a current administration. What happens in 3.5 years, if there's a different administration who has a different opinion, right? And so there's so much uncertainty around that. And again, California, we do have offshore drilling that's going on. You can see the oil islands off of Long Beach, the CRC, and that's providing a lot of resources to us. So, I mean, I can't speak for my companies. We all just read that press release today, but again, these are large companies that aren't going to turn on a dime, and especially in a state that probably doesn't want that.
That's quite clear.
Yeah, so I don't, the governor's statement was quite clear what he thought about that. He opined today.
Okay.
So do you think that Philip or Valero, are they gonna open some refineries in some other states?
I don't know what their plans are. And I should also caveat this, as staff, we're under very strict antitrust guidelines because these are publicly traded companies. So I don't get to see any of their business plans. Everything I know about San Pedro is what I get to read in the newspaper. We're not privy to any inside information at all. So I don't know what their plans are. I would say that it would be very difficult to build refineries pretty much anywhere. So we'll have to see what their thoughts are.
What about those 600 employees? Do they have any
So
training or retraining or?
yeah, so most of those, so the companies do work with them to try and place them elsewhere, or other companies are obviously picking them up as well, because they're obviously very well trained. And we do use represented labor. We work with the state building trades, and they are great, and safety is number one with them as well as refineries. So we work very close with them. And so retraining programs, some people maybe take early retirements, some want to move out of state. So all different scenarios, but again, it's not, even if you could place 600 of them, does it mean they're going right back in here into the same area? Does it mean they're, those are high paying salaries, and those salaries affect, maybe their kid was in dance classes, maybe their kid was in private whatever, soccer lessons. I mean, so there's this knockoff effect too. When jobs go away, high paying jobs go away. So I'm not sure where, but I know the companies they've had a year working on this.
Thank you.
Okay, Zane,
I'm good.
Okay. Dean, and then I think we have another member that wants to ask after Jake.
So if California gas tax 61 cents, in Nevada, it's about half that. And Nevada gets their gas from us. We've already got the regulatory pollution controls on it. Why is it practically $1 cheaper when you cross the border into Nevada?
Because the tax on our California.
Yeah, our tax is 61 cents. Nevada's about 30.
Yes, because our tax is fueling cap and trade, the storage tank underground fees. So our tax is higher because we're funding a whole bunch of other programs. They're not, and they're buying it.
There's a 61. Our tax is 61 cents. Theirs is 31. But when we cross the border driving, the price at the pump is $1 cheaper in Nevada.
Yeah.
Why?
Because a different state.
Well, but the taxes are only 30 cents less.
I know. Because that's what their state is charging for their tax. We're not taxing it as it's leaving here.
About 70 cents.
Yes, it's subsidized.
I'm talking about the price at the pump. Nevada doesn't subsidize their gas, do they?
No,
Okay.
they don't have, they don't have in our gas tax, there's about 4 or 5 programs in there that are, so we're paying for, let's see, which I can see.
You say we pay 61 and 24 and 17?
So we're paying for a low carbon fuel standard. We're paying 24 cents for cap and trade, 10 cents for state and local, 2 cents for underground storage tanks. So we've loaded up.
So all those are state taxes except federal.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Jake?
Yeah, you said that you also support electric vehicles. I'd be interested to hear about what support that looks like. Because if we're talking about the risk of dependence on foreign crude, why is the solution increasing oil production and not just decreasing dependence?
Well, let me tell you, where's that lithium coming from?
I understand that.
So it's the same, you're talking about foreign risk. You got it right there too.
You were talking about foreign risk. So why aren't we looking for alternatives for the energy production rather than just more production of domestic oil? And can you speak to how you are supporting the electric vehicle push?
So because our companies are invested in those technologies.
So.
Well, I don't have their business plan. We are not opposed to electric batteries. Okay, in fact, our companies are invested in everything, fuels you haven't even seen yet. So they are very progressive on energy, but it is the scale. That's the point here. It's the scale. that we need energy every single day that's reliable. 37 million registered cars and trucks, 38 million people in our state. That's why you have to have the amount of fuels that we're bringing into the market now. So when I say we support, I'm just letting you know, we're not against electric at all. At all. Our companies are invested and, but you also have to consider with electric, the batteries have issues as well. There's no perfect energy out. Well, some would say nuclear, but I mean, everything has something that goes with it. And so again, when you look at lithium, you have to ask, well, where is rhodium and copper and where are all these precious minerals coming from? And how do they get recycled? And just like we all want to reduce waste streams, that's the goal, no waste, right? Yeah. So we're very progressive on fuels. And like I said, we've got sustainable aviation fuel that's being tested now. So we get it. We live here. We're part of this. You know, our kids are here, our churches are here, our schools. We're part of a solution too. So I don't, and we're doing our part to, you know, carbon capture utilization. That's another huge thing that's going to take more carbon out of the sky.
Yeah, but it's not at scale. It doesn't work at scale right now. Are there initiatives to do that?
We have a big project that's going into Bakersfield. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
sorry, we're getting short on time. I have one more person that wants to ask a question and then we're gonna wrap up this. Wally?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Bernadette. Given that these refineries are going to close, what is the plan for recycling the land, given that they're probably massive brownfields? How are you going to reuse those sites?
that's going to be up to the refinery to, I mean, they have announced plans for the Phillips 66 has made public, you know, it's been in the papers. Some of it could be, they have lots of different plans for them, but you're right, remediation will have to take place.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so
Good to
much.
go?
for your
All right, thank you.
presentation. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move along to the program action items, reports and updates with the Housing Trust.
Let me introduce this item. As you know, we have this continuing saga of discussing whether we're going to have a housing trust. And at the last meeting, you heard from our consultant who told you several things about the strategic plan that he's come up with. I said some of this at steering committee. I hope I'm not repeating too much, but I was very skeptical about the housing trust. I didn't quite know why we needed one, but it is becoming clear as I learn more, and I'm really trying to delve into this, that Measure A and the money we're getting, which is not sunsetted, is going to be a continuing issue for the COG. And the COG does not have the authorities that a housing trust would have to spend the money in probably the most cost-effective way. So we have this presentation that Ron's is going to give you. And before he does, I'm going to tell you that on the agenda, it says recommend for city councils to consider approval. Yesterday was the city managers meeting. And I was at the city managers meeting and with Ronson and our consultant. And we went through this presentation with the city managers. And one of their first questions was, we can't get this on our council agendas fast enough. You got to give us a couple of months. And they need more information. And one of the things I want to ask you for tonight is the information you need for us, for you to take this back to your councils, and the information that you want us to get for your city managers, because they haven't heard this actually as much as you have. And there are some issues that I think we can easily address, but we have to know what they are. We've also offered, as much as we physically can, to go to your city councils. If you invite us, we'll come and we'll be there to make a presentation and answer questions. But a JPA agreement has to be signed by every city that wants to join. And we were hoping to get this done very soon, but actually the timetable is ours. You know, we're going to lose our consultant in June, but we need to do this right. So we'll take the time we need to take. So in doing all of that, let me present this to you. And if you give me an answer tonight, wonderful. But what you would be doing, what the COG would be doing, is recommending whether to move forward or whether not to. Now, remember that whether you recommend moving forward or not, We can still send all this to the cities and you can independently decide with or without our recommendation. But you have put a lot of time into this, and I think it would be good for the COG to give a recommendation as to how you feel we should move forward. So I'll let Ronson go and I will possibly interrupt him as I do. But we'll, and you let us know if you have questions along the way.
Great. Thanks, David. So yeah, Jackie's absolutely right. We had kind of an epiphany about how we're thinking about the housing trust. And like, I don't know, we were exactly thinking about it correctly, but just a reminder, Measure A legislated $13 million for the South Bay for the CASA funds. And the CASA funds are going towards production, preservation, and ownership. So that's $13 million, and this is annually. This money is actually sitting in an escrow account, so it's already happening. Next slide. Of this $13 million, $7 million is for production and preservation and ownership. And so basically, this is what we're doing already is basically housing trust like work. And it's not just the $7 million. There's also La Casa funding for this that we can tap into. And La Casa has already said that they'd be willing to match some of our projects. So we potentially could double this annually to like $14 million. And by the way, La Casa is actually bonding the 68, so they're gonna have $210 million. So there's lots of funding out there for work that our voters voted for a year ago for Measure A. And so that work's already happening. Next slide. So the epiphany was this, that we were kind of copying how SGV, St. Gabriel Valley, and Gateway COGs were going about this. So they were debating about forming a housing trust, and then they did form the housing trust. And then they got La Casa funding, and they folded La Casa funding into the housing trust. Next slide. We're in a different position. We don't have a housing trust, but we already have funding for housing trust-like activities. The voters are already told us we were going to give you $13 million a year to do production, preservation, and ownership, and enrichment protection, and all this other stuff. And so we have to now do that. And so so we did a soft no. So go to the next slide. Okay. So we did a soft NOFA to get projects in the door, and there's things in the CASA that we can do. However, all the things in the red, the COG is not set up to do. So we can do grants to cities to support their rural housing developments. We can't do soft loans. We can't do construction pre-development loans. We can't do preservation acquisition or having equity stakes in any of these projects. We can't do master leasing of properties. We can do rental and operating subsidies out of the COG, but we cannot also do direct service of home buyer assistance for out of the COG. So all these things we can't do out of the COG, but we can do out of a housing trust. Next slide. And so just to give you an example, the San Gabriel Valley Housing Trust, for the loans that they give out using these public dollars, they're already generating $230,000 of revenue of just interest funding. And so again, without a housing trust, we can't do that. And this year, one of their loans are going to be fully repaid. So now the trust can now recycle that money for more affordable housing development. So because we can't do loans, we can't do that with our La Casa funding.
Yeah, they did start with more, but this is just a showing you what the returns they're getting after 5 years, I think.
Yeah. So next slide. And then so the other question that comes up a lot is that, well, what if our city, we're not interested in development opportunities? There's no place for us to build, so we don't really need that. Well, I just want to remind you, La Casa, these funds are more than just construction. There's also preservation of existing affordable housing. And almost every city, except maybe for one, there's naturally occurring affordable housing that are at risk. And so preservation is a big tenet of this La Casa funding. There's master leasing. We can master lease units. There's rent and operating subsidies. And then there's first-time homebuyer assistance. So even if your city doesn't want to do any development, there's other ways your cities are currently already, scheduled to benefit from. Because again, the La Casa funding is for all of our cities. So we're all already part of it. As long as you're with the COG, you have access to all the La Casa opportunities. Next slide. And then this is just a reminder, none of our cities are immune to the affordable housing issues that we have. In every city, we see eviction filings and, and so we have about 2,500 a year in eviction filings. And that's just for, for we're renting. We also have, homeowners that are struggling too. So those are, so we continue to see the problem of the affordable housing, crisis. Next slide. So yeah, so we're already kind of doing the activities. We did a soft notice of funding in September that was sent to all the cities. We have two projects, one in Hawthorne and Inglewood, that may be viable. We're currently evaluating it, and then we have an RFP out from consultants to help us evaluate those projects. And those total 120 units. And then we have other cities that reached out to us and they're interested in developing a pipeline for affordable housing development. And then we're also in the process of developing our programs, our products and funding criteria and the documentation requirements. So we're already doing a lot of this work already.
This was important in convincing me because if we have to, when Hawthorne and Inglewood presented us their proposals, we can't say yes or no, and I can't come to you. We have to really vet them. Are they really good proposals? Are they not? What does it mean to the COG? What do we, And so we have to hire a consultant. We don't have that expertise. If we're going to hire a consultant, I thought we could get out of that kind of thing, but we can't. If we're going to really spend our money, we have to know how to spend it wisely. So we have to hire a consultant, and that consultant will be from the COG to evaluate these projects. But if it was the trust, it would be much more robust.
Next slide. Yeah, I'll just pause there because I think you kind of get it, like kind of where we're going with this. Is that, the Measure A kind of puts us in a different place than the other COGs. We're getting the money already. We're getting out of the $13 million, about 10% goes to administration costs. So all this work is being paid for now by the taxpayers. All of you are all in it, like you're all benefiting from the cost of Measure A. So the work is already happening. And then so we talked about yesterday with the city manager's office, or the city managers that, for this first year, if we were to do the housing trust, we would, if all we're doing is the CASA, then it would just be status quo. But then we have the housing trust to allow us to do some more things with the taxpayer dollars that have been entrusted to us. And so that's kind of the idea. And then beyond that, in years 2 and 3, that would then be up to the Housing Trust Board, which you all would have a say in how that's formulated. And so that's kind of the idea of where we're at right now.
So then let me go on to just talk about the city managers. The questions that they came up with, I wrote myself a note to just let you know. One of the concerns they had is right now it's first come, first serve. So they said, what about geographic equity? Well, there will be a La Casa board, and the Casa board could clearly, a housing trust board. I'm looking at my note, a housing trust board, and they can clearly say, like we do with Measure R&M, one of our criteria for Measure R&M is geographic equity. So that's something that we can do here at the COG, or the Housing Trust Board can do it. And some of these things, it seems to me, should be left for a trust board when they form. It's the money that they're going to spend. Secondly, if cities don't plan to join the trust, theoretically or in practice, we could keep out a little bit of money to try to help those cities with anything we can do. But there's very little we can do to help them that would be meaningful with a very little bit of money. So some of the COGs actually don't give all of their money for construction to the trust because not all of their cities participate. That's a subject we can discuss later, depending on how many cities would want to join. I don't know if Ronson made it completely clear, but because of all of the money we're getting from La Casa for administration and technical assistance, the first year we would not charge any city fee. When you saw it from the consultant, this is our recommendation. No, this is all recommendations. As you saw from the consultant, he was saying, well, we charge 10,000, 20, 30, depending on the size of the city. Our feeling is because we have this money and we have the money for administration, first year we wouldn't charge, and then it would really be up to the trust board again. You're on the trust board. If you think there's enough money, they wouldn't have to charge the cities anything. This question came up about Rolling Hills. And as I said, it wouldn't, that would be up to the trust board in a future meeting if they even wanted to charge the cities any money, if Rolling Hills wanted to come into it. One question did come up, which was really interesting, and that had to do with Manhattan Beach has these units that are being developed now, and there's affordable housing in those units. And they have to, and you might have this in your cities, they have to certify that the people are low income. It's going to be the city's job to certify that the people are low income and to certify compliance. And they were saying, can the trust do that? Well, yes, the trust can do that, but what we found out subsequently is we can't use La Casa money, which is really ridiculous because these didn't come from La Casa money. You can only use La Casa money for what came from La Casa money. I think that's something that we should work with our supervisors to fight at the end of the day, because what's happening is that every one of your cities that does this has to have an infrastructure, whereas you could just give it to us. We could use La Casa money, or we could figure out a way to do this. And the COG could do that certification. And I think it's something we should talk about no matter what we do, because for you to create a new infrastructure to do this new thing doesn't make any sense. So all these things are coming up. It's like getting a PhD or something. It's ridiculous. So these are some of the questions that came up. And as Ronson said, in a situation, one of the things in the Manhattan Beach case, which I don't think the city wants to do, is they could master lease. Now the COG can't master lease. The city could do it, or our trust could do it, and then they could control the rents. So there's all these different kinds of things that we have to talk about. And what we want to do, as I said, is we're hoping that we would get some indication of how you want to go. To ask you to vote tonight seems, for your council, you can't do. To ask you to vote personally, if you want to make a recommendation, we thought maybe we should give you another month or something to go back and talk to your city manager, find out what they think from hearing the report that we gave. But now I guess I should stop talking and see if you have any questions and where you want to go with this.
Jack, you mentioned the first year, possibly no fee to the city. Do you have a sense of, let's say, a 5-year projection of what the fees might be?
It looks to me like the trust, what's been bothering me about this trust all along is that the fixed hard costs to get the consultants and the legal and everything is like $500,000. And so if 4 cities want to do this, that's a lot of money for just doing it. But we are getting like $800,000 in technical assistance this year. And we're getting other money, which was.
Yeah, we have a total of, so we're getting a total about, on the slide, it showed $13 million. So about 10% of that can go towards administrative. So $1.3 million.
So we're saying maybe the trust board will decide something completely different, but there's no reason why we should charge you right now when we have all this money. And I didn't say, the other thing I didn't say, you didn't say, I don't think either, is that these other trusts, because they've been a trust, have been able to access other kinds of funds. And so they've built more funds as a trust.
So I guess to preface this, I just want to say how I'm looking at the issue as the voting delegate from Rolling Hills Estates. It's like a bifurcated analysis. The first question is, should COG enter into the housing trust? Second question is later, should my city join the trust if COG decides to form one?
No, that's not the question. The cities have to decide to form one. The COG can only give a recommendation as to whether we think it's a good idea.
You can join a housing trust. You can form a housing trust with 2 cities.
4 cities. Our legislation says 4
I
cities.
thought this document says 2 again.
Oh.
4 cities. Okay, but anyway, that's how I'm looking. I'm looking as a 2-part analysis. So I know we're not voting on it tonight. My question has to do with the board of directors for the housing trust. The draft JPA says that the directors in homelessness and housing policy appointed would be ratified by the governing board of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. So if that trust has a board, but COG is a separate entity, why are we ratifying members of that housing trust board? And I also noticed that in the staff report on page 2, it says that we're working with Senator Allen's office on some cleanup legislation that might address that. So maybe the answer to the question is, what is the status of that?
Right, so when we first drafted the legislation 3 or 4 years ago, we modeled it off of San Gabriel Valleys, and their COG is much more tied into the trust than, as we've gone through this process, we think our COG will be with our trust if one exists. So their board appoints the members, does all of that. As we've learned and progressed, we think that a lot of this should be that our board is not the appropriate board to be making these decisions. And so what we're trying to do is amend the legislation to provide that authority to the Housing Trust Board as opposed to the COG board.
I think that's appropriate.
Pulling the COG out of it as much as possible.
All right, and then what's the status of that letter?
So we're going to propose, Senator Allen's staff thinks they might have a gut and amend bill. We have to give them all of our requested changes by December 15th. And so that would be going through the legislative cycle this upcoming year. In the initial conversations, that kind of stuff didn't seem to be any concern. We talked to them earlier, the last legislative session, because they might have had a vehicle to do it then. That didn't seem to be any concern to the housing committee staff. So that I think has a pretty good chance of making it through. We also wanted to add in the ability to fund moderate income, affordability level programs, depending on how it's worded, and that's a little bit more of a sensitive subject to the housing committee staff, but the two don't have to be tied together. I mean, and then the other thing was in the legislation, all it says is refers to as a board of directors, but it specifies that they're elected officials or council members or supervisor if the county was to be there. As the steering committee, I think the steering committee, they talked, they were looking at potentially having non-elected alternates to the board, which would allow, like in your city, your CPA alternate is a former council member who has developed expertise by being on that board for a while.
It would be the council's choice.
It would still be each individual city member's choice to add an alternate that would not be an elected, but that would require also change in the legislative language because it specifies currently an elected official.
It's going to be hard to finalize a JPA without that legislation in place, because there are going to be parts of the JPA that would have to change if that legislation passes.
Right. I don't foresee a city actually, I mean, unless depending on how simple that language is, I mean, that bill is to clean up the language, it could go through pretty quickly through the legislature. But I would agree that until the legislative, because the legislation ultimately is constricting the JPA right now. Until that legislation is changed, I would say that the JPA it won't be able to be adopted
Unless the cities are willing to start it off with the COG.
with the current language and then.
Because what the COG could do is the COG could informally say, we're not going to pick anybody your city doesn't pick. We can play with this. We don't have to pick an appointment. We can say, we're down to beach, who do you want us to appoint? And go back to the city and pick who the cities say.
Well,
I don't think that's a deal breaker.
The thing that bothers me most is the fact that COG would be ratifying people for the Housing Trust Board. So
That's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
We could agree among ourselves.
that's what I think would happen.
Yeah, so I mean, I would
we
hope
go
that this
forward.
wouldn't hold the trust up. If you want to form the trust, we could figure out workarounds for this while the legislation's going through.
And I don't want to dwell on this. Why am I wrong to say that if the Housing Trust is formed, my city has to decide whether to join it?
Because it's going to be a new joint powers authority. And so you have to decide whether to join a joint powers authority.
Right.
So that's why your city has to decide.
Not every city has to join this Housing Trust.
No,
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have to join
Yeah,
from day
right.
one.
So I as a delegate might be in favor because I think it's good for the region,
Yeah.
but my city, I could not convince perhaps my city council members to join.
And I don't think
That's what I'm
any trust that's
Right.
formed, at least in LA County, has formed with all of the sub-region cities.
That's
from day
right.
one.
Initially, yeah.
Yeah.
Finding that into two different questions as I
I
analyze.
see. I didn't know.
That's what I'm
And
doing.
then I see Lance had a question. We'll start with you. we'll go to Alex.
You got the
and
mic, go
then
ahead, bud.
No, no, go ahead.
Zane.
So my understanding right now is that the first thing we have to do is actually decide whether to recommend to form the trust, because the rest of this conversation is moot otherwise. Does
Yeah,
that sound right?
probably, yeah.
So based on, I'm assuming everything on your presentation is accurate, you have a lot more options, how you can utilize the money. It's a better business plan doing it that way, so it makes sense to do it that way rather than doing it straight through lockstep. The second thing we would need, though, I think that everybody is facing, is that now we have to figure out how to convince the elected officials in the city to go along with it. And for that, you're gonna have to figure out what the actual structure is of the trust. So if we're really tonight, the only thing we can really talk about is, do we recommend having a housing trust? Then the second part has got to be, what does it look like? Is that gonna be happening tonight, or is that another meeting?
Well, it looks like there is a JPA is in here, and it looks like what's in the JPA. And the city managers actually wrote the JPA. But you reminded me of something that I meant to mention. When we presented this yesterday to the city managers, we said, for example, we would give the money, because we cannot loan, we would give the money to, let's say, Hawthorne. And they said, one of the city managers said, well, why wouldn't the city just want the money? They'll make the loan and they'll make the money. And what that means is that the money doesn't end up going back to us, it goes back to Hawthorne. So the cities were sitting there and saying, maybe for us, it makes more sense that we should do this loan cut. And that was some of the equation that sort of drifted the conversation into, well, gee, is this really a good idea or not? So I wanted to put that on the
No,
table.
I got you. My point is, if we don't establish a trust, the rest of this conversation doesn't make any difference. So are we at a point, I'm sorry, go ahead, I don't want to you're gonna say something, go ahead.
Well, you see, more we talk, more question is risen, right? Because, for example, La Casa is giving the money to the SBCCOG for all the 16 cities. Now imagine if the housing trust, only 4 cities join. So how the money is going to be going to the trust instead of SBCCOG for the other cities? See, it creates like a conflict there. So that is where the GPA say that the SBCCOG has some authority over the trust, because La Casa might say, we're not giving money to the trust. The money is going to SBCCOG because it represents 16 cities, not 4 cities. So there is like kind of confusion there that is not clear in my head. And then when you said we have $800,000 for TA for the first year, is that money every year La Casa would have to give us more money every year for all those programs? Or this is one-time deal?
It's not one time. It's every year.
It's every year. So we would have technical assistance money every year. So
Annual.
we could avoid to put any fees or dues to the cities.
And yes, you could, if the board decides they want to do that. Now, one of the things, you're right, if only 4 cities join, and this is what's happened in other COGs, and I didn't say it very clearly, but this board would have to decide how much money to give to the trust. We don't have to give all the money to the trust.
Okay.
And so if only 4 cities join, we'd have to figure out, well, should we give, 1/16? What would we do? And it's not, $5 million is not a lot of money. So it's a question of what we hold back that's meaningful and what we give that's meaningful. And that's a conversation to have later.
So therefore, the SBCCOG has to have an authority.
We do
per
have
se
that.
over-
You're right.
over that.
Oh, but wait a minute, let me ask Ronson. I think La Casa gives the money to the COG or the trust, right? If we have a trust, can they give it straight to the trust, or do they have to use us?
I have to double check, but the legislation was that in lieu of giving it to the COG, the region can decide to give it to the trust.
Yeah. So it might bypass the COG altogether.
I do also want to add, I think Lance crystallized it really well, that the COG was formed to be a COG. It was never formed to be a housing trust. And so we're kind of fitting a round peg into a square hole right now with the La Casa funds. I think that's the crux of the issue.
Zane.
All right. I agree. Sorry. I think this is a good idea. I'll just tell you what we're facing in Redondo Beach. We had on Tuesday night, a mother came with her son, who's a teen ROTC, Marine ROTC, saying, hey, our HUD housing vouchers are gonna expire in April, but we need to make it till June, we're gonna have no money. The city has no solution for that, has no bridge that it can extend. My understanding is this would provide some flexibility as for some of the money we could provide. Another thing is, we're meeting with developers, and we just met Councilmember Kaljurich and I with two different developers on two different sites, and they're planning, one of them's planning a building entirely of affordable studios. Well, that's not good for families. And so they're doing the studios because that's the cheapest and that's what gets them the density bonus. But maybe there's a supplement we could provide through the housing trust that would enable them to do 2 bedrooms or flexible spaces. And so that's where I see it being beneficial. And same thing with another project. We had to tell them, hey, we'd really like you to do family affordable housing. And I feel like if there was a housing trust, you know, every developer building residential in the South Bay or in the cities that are part of the JPA could have a required meeting with the housing trust to discuss what their affordable component looks like. So I would favor this. One question I do have though is, let's say a city doesn't join the housing trust. What happens with their allocation of Measure A funds?
We have to figure that out. Well, they get the services, it's not part of this. But this one, $5 to $7 million, we'd have to decide here how much to give, that we would give to the housing trust, or what would happen if, I mean, it's up, we can't answer that question, I guess. Is the answer to your question.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. You mentioned San Gabriel Valley and their interest that is accrued has afforded them the opportunity to pay off. Expound on that a little bit for us, please.
One of their programs is a revolving loan fund. And so they give out money for 5, 10 years, whatever the term is. The developer pays it back and then they loan that money out again. And so if the trust wanted to implement a program like that, you're making your Measure A, your year 1 Measure A funding lasts forever because it ends up coming back. And then that compounds and they make interest on that loan from the developer. And so I think that's from what the consultant was saying, that's a pretty standard trust program, is that kind of low interest revolving loan fund.
And that might be something like Zane was talking about that could incentivize larger apartment builds. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, Craig, and then
Can't do as a con.
So the question I have
Cannot loan.
Right.
is, Measure A funds are a sales tax revenue.
Yes.
And there was mention that this money's gonna go on forever. What is the risk of that Measure A funding going away through a referendum on the ballot?
Forever tax.
Well,
I mean-
but there's I mean, they could always have a referendum. But how successful have those referendums been to repeal taxes?
It's curious. It could easily happen, right?
The business of homelessness is booming. They are not gonna get rid of $1 billion a year.
What if we become a red state?
Well, Mike, I'm gonna go on record that it's not gonna last forever. And the question is, when is it gonna go away? And we're building this enormous trust and the money may not be there down the road.
But this is where we recycle the money, right? As a loan.
Right. Well, I think once it comes back, it's not
Yeah.
continually Measure A money, it's the trust money. It's
And we recycle.
been washed, I guess, if you want to.
But you say that, but we're supposed
Laundering
to,
money now.
we're supposed to spend the money, right? The money's supposed to go out every year, right?
As a loan.
And you're assuming all the loans are gonna be paid off and the money will come back, right?
Right. That's the assumption of the business model, yeah.
Not necessarily every
Not all
year,
loans.
depends on how much money you
Some
have.
could be cleans, yeah.
To maybe fund the initiative for Zane's folks who are running out of HUD money. right?
Yeah, there's a whole plethora of types of programs that
Right,
trust
we can-
implement.
yeah.
Some, I mean, if you want to do first time home buyer, that could just be a grant to
Right.
Well,
a young person.
you could do the first time, a lot of those first time home buyers are, you allow for the down payment and then it gets recorded against the property. But if that person say sells within a certain, like, within a year, that can be paid back to the trust, recorded, unless it's over like 7 years or something, then a lot of them function like that.
I think the other Measure A, I don't think is the only thing you should be looking at as a funding source either. San Gabriel Valley, when the state had money, they've gotten upwards of 60 or $70 million in earmarks. And so after we get through this current deficit cycle and the state's flush with cash again, I think that having a trust shows our legislators that we're doing something, and that makes an earmark much more likely. And so Measure A is just that current funding source that we currently have access to.
So we're gonna be sending all this to your councils, and if you want to take an action.
I think Bernadette had a comment too.
Oh, no, mine was gonna be more of a comment of that I would be in favor of supporting this, just because I like the component of the, home buyers assistance. Our city has, I think, 70% rentals, and I would really like to see an opportunity for our residents to be able to, purchase homes. So that was my.
Motion to endorse a housing trust.
Yeah, I second. Question. What, I didn't.
Oh,
He
the
made a motion.
question.
So, just so I understand, the 13 million that comes to our COG per year is for housing and prevention funding. But then it says in the slide that then we're gonna talk about the funds that are dedicated to production, preservation, and ownership of housing as those being in the trust. Are those something separate from the housing and prevention funding? So how much of this 13 million are the funds you're talking about that are dedicated to production, preservation, and ownership of housing?
7 million.
7 million. So then, okay, so what I'm trying to understand is, because it's sort of what Alex is raising too, it is creating a, basically, two-part system, whereas right now, the COG gets all the money. I mean, there could be a mechanism, I suppose, other than a trust, just hypothesizing here, whereby the COG could be still have all the funds, but for those who need something whereby you're gonna have to do soft development loans, construction pre-development loans, preservation, acquisition, master leasing, home buyer assistance, things that the COG is presently not legally capable of doing, you could have a nonprofit portion of the COG to perform those functions so that everybody has equal access to all of the funds. Because at this point, if you create a trust, then if you're doing like what San Gabriel COG does, they put all that money into the trust. And so there's nothing left. And no, I know it's going to be a vote of the COG, but if you have most of the cities going into the trust, then any city who's not in the trust is by virtue of being voted out, not going to get pretty much on any of the funding that normally would be had if it was all under the umbrella of the COG. So that's my question. I don't know necessarily why one could not have a arm of the COG that is not a trust where everybody has all these rules where you basically have to pay in to be in the trust. And there's
You don't have to pay it.
well, not the first year, but I read the contract and the JPA defines that basically, in order to, let's say somebody's in the trust, to withdraw from the trust, you're gonna have to pay all that you would owe before you can get out of the trust, especially if you're trying to leave right before the fiscal year or just after a fiscal year started. You'd have to pay all of your dues, so to speak. So there is that provision. That's the way it's set up. So I don't think we should look at it that, oh, we've got this money now, it's going to be free this year, that it's just going to be a freebie every year. So all I'm saying is that it seems to create haves and have-nots when you put a housing trust where people have to agree to be part of that, even if they don't really need most of the services. So that's where I'm concerned about the model and the provision of having it.
We don't have to agree to join it.
Well,
I think Bronson has a
so
response.
then there's no money for the cities that don't join it, is what I'm saying.
I just want to say, no, I appreciate that idea, the creative thinking about the nonprofit model. I just want, just two things. One, I'm not 100% sure that the cost allows us to also have a third entity, like a nonprofit entity associated with the COG as an eligible entity to receive the funding. That is not in the legislation. There is legislation that states that housing trusts and the COGs are two eligible entities. Also, the other thing to note too, the housing trust can be set up as a nonprofit. So I don't know if there's a distinction between kind of what your idea and then also the housing trust idea too. So because I don't know, in my mind, it's kind of the same idea. It's that the housing trust could also you can also think of it as a nonprofit in a way. Because I think you would still have the same issues, right? Like the nonprofit would, they would have their own board. So
Well, all I'm saying is that if this entity is controlled by the COG and by its board of directors, it's not a separate entity in that sense. It's simply an entity that's created to perform functions that the COG is not legally able to do in its format, but it has another entity but through which it can operate that does have those functions. So that would be, I would like to see some exploration of that so that everybody's under the same umbrella and can use all the monies. Then we don't have to carve a pot and say, okay, this is the housing trust pot, and now you're left with whatever's left.
But I think part of the problem is that if you don't establish a trust, you're severely limited on how the money can actually be, the funds can actually be used. I think that's the fundamental problem, I think that was the point of your presentation, right?
I think we can go back to La Casa and just verify. Because La Casa lists the eligible jurisdictions, he's right. They list them by name. And we're listed as South Bay Council of Governments or South Bay Housing Trust. So would that allow the trust to be something other than what they say the trust is? So we'd have to check that out.
It's not, I would say it's not a lot of money. It's every year. So whatever you agree to now is what you're gonna get. And there's no sunset on that bill, on that. So it's not going anywhere. So the money's going to be there. And
No, I
right?
understand that, other than, some other measure going before the voters and rescinding Measure A. That's the only
Right.
caveat. But all I'm saying is that it seems to be that it would be a win-win for all of us if we had some mechanism by which we could use or implement these functions that the COG cannot perform without limiting the number of members, and have it broader based. So that's all I'm suggesting. You could create a trust that just allows it to do those sort of things, but everybody's a member.
Well,
I don't know.
We're not limiting the members. You're just
Well,
saying whether you want to.
I mean, the way that the JPA is defined, you have to be buy-in and to the membership, and there would be associated with additional fees over and above being
Not
part of the COG.
necessarily.
Well, but it's in there.
But
It's
you're the
written.
COG board. I mean, you would be the trust board. So if you didn't want fees, you wouldn't have fees.
Well, I'm looking at the legal language.
So it's, just for clarification, what you're saying is, hey, you're looking, if it's not a trust with members, non-members, is there another way through La Casa to,
Right.
I'll use the word wash, since that's another way to wash.
Stay with another descriptor.
I like wash, Breaking Bad, all that. Is there another pot we can put into under this La Casa umbrella that we can all tap into to?
Right, would be like the implementation arm for
Right.
these functions that the
Right.
COG cannot do, but is still controlled by the COG.
Right.
And can do these
All the
things
things that the COG can't do.
But we
trust fund,
we can create a GPA as a way that everybody is involved on the GPA, and they can do those functions. It does create these other umbrellas, so it's the same thing in a sense.
That really is, just calling it a
It's the
trust.
same
that
thing. So
everyone's
it's called
connected.
housing trust, and then let's say the first year, everybody's a member because it's free.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't have to call it a housing trust. We can call it a housing nonprofit.
Yeah, you can
It's the
call
same
it anything
JPA.
you want.
I got it.
Okay, so
But housing trust is the language that La Casa has been using, then some of the states is using it. So we should use the housing trust so we can be able to access more capital down the road. That's it.
Okay, so we're running,
Can I ask one last quick one? I promise it'll be super
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
And I touched on this last, oh, I'm sorry, I cut off Wally. Wally. Over.
yeah, let's do Wall and then Chris.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to just comment on this. I've been studying housing economics here for the last 3 or 4 months, and I think the point has been made that we have taxed ourselves. It gets distributed to housing trusts as a very efficient way of using the tax money that has been set aside. But let's be clear that that's a supply side approach, that a trust is a way to fund housing development. And when you look at it, just to make 2 quick points, the housing market economics are much more complicated than building supply. And so if you want to get the affordable, see, the housing crisis has been defined as not enough housing by folks who benefit from that kind of connection, but it ain't true. There's much more housing policy that's needed if you're actually going to take a bite out of the housing market in the South Bay and try to get more people to be able to afford to live here. So supply is one thing, keep your eye on it. It's a good way to spend the money, but it ain't the only thing. And we need to talk about at some point the other tools that are going to be available. The second thing I would say is the way in which RENA and the way housing supply is working is that it is not contributing to sustainability. That is, any vacant lot, you can go ahead and put housing on it. That's what's going on. And so the bigger issue here is to get together and talk about local control. We need to rebuild our community development departments by taking local control back from the state, which is just throwing you volumes, go throw volumes at it. And it's really got to be more carefully sited into complete neighborhoods and so forth. So those are the 2 things. As you go forward with the idea of the trust, bear in mind its limitations. It's just about supply. You're not going to build your way out of it. And secondly, we need more tools and we need to be more careful about our siting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wally.
Just a quick, very tactical sort of question. I touched on it last time. Do we have legal analysis of what the trust can spend its money on? So if we decide we're going to issue a loan to a builder and a builder is going to build 2 affordable units, does the specter of prevailing wage toxify that entire project? And is there any way that we can do this? Because this is the question my council will ask. If we're going to deploy those assets in El Segundo, it will be specifically to build units. But if every time we try and deploy that funding in any creative mechanism, it's going to make prevailing wage ruin it, like it ruins every other thing we try to build, like, then we're unlikely to, like, I can bring it to the council and we'll use it and we'll shake it around and then we'll make a piñata and like, yeah.
Chris, we talk about that extensively at La Casa because, yeah, the way it's written, it scares away developers, period. And so you're absolutely right. So like we're thinking about workarounds. So for example, in the Redondo Beach example that Zane brought up, the builder wants to build 160 units and 27 of them be affordable. So what we're thinking about is that they subdivide the lot. And so that the affordable portion of it will be funded by La Casa with prevailing wage, but we're not touching the market rate stuff. So that's one kind of workaround.
And will that fly? Or will it only fly once?
It's been done before.
It's been done before? Like this is, so we could do,
yeah.
Aaron and Moses will agree and we can all go down the mountain?
It's gonna fly until somebody says, this is happening too much, and they're gonna probably.
Well, that's what if we're gonna commit to this thing and it's gonna be a 1-year project of a creative solution and then it gets squashed by our
Well, we can't
friends.
do, but theoretically, I mean, we can't, Ronson has told me, and I guess maybe this is the next couple of years, we're gonna all be discussing this. That the restrictions on this proposition, on this measure are so strict that you're not gonna be able to fulfill the promise that they've created, and you're gonna have to revise the measure. Now, the revision could also be a repeal, but things like the fact that you weren't here, but we can't help cities verify income because it wasn't, the CASA. Those kinds of things. There are things in there that just don't make sense and are causing us to spend a lot of extra money on administration, which is going to create a beautiful LA Times story someday. And so, but it's in that measure. And so I think we have to work with the measure and learn it a couple of years, and then we're probably going to have to change things.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I just think if we're gonna take these to city councils, they're gonna ask, how do I actually use this? And there'll be nothing worse than being 6 months in and being like, okay, let's do it. Being, oh, well, the rule says. And then we're all gonna be like, oh, just another stupid California thing we did.
David, do you have the appendix open? I really do want to share just to Chris's question. And this is something I can share with the councils.
Yes.
So go to the third slide, actually. This is the Inglewood. So I just want to share this with you because I want to show you it's more than just production. So this is in Gardena. It's actually, I think it might be an unincorporated Gardena. But nevertheless, it's for sale. $13.9 million. The reason why I was interested in this is it's naturally occurring affordable housing. So what it is, this landlord charges rents for a 1 bedroom, $1,600. That's a great deal. 2 bedroom, $1,900. We can put families in here. If you go to the next slide.
That's still for sale?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Rent ain't gonna be 1,400 for long if you keep showing that slide.
Yeah.
Your couch, Chris.
Well, so my point though is,
Call it Drew.
so, I don't know if you guys have heard of Invitation Homes. You can buy the stock right now, IMVH. BlackRock owns 10% of it. They've identified the Southwest United States as a high rent growth potential opportunity, and they're actively in our markets. They bought this house in Gardena and rented it for $4,000 a month. So the threat to your affordable housing is real, and displacement is happening all the time. And so one of the things we're looking at doing with our La Casa funds is preservation and to intervene in the market. So to prevent the BlackRocks of the world from displacing people that are in your naturally occurring affordable housing. So that's definitely one thing we want to focus on as well.
What do you mean by market intervention? Like you're gonna buy that property?
Yeah, so we are talking to developers that specialize in naturally occurring, it's called NOAA preservation, naturally occurring affordable housing preservation. And they go into an open market and they buy up these units. What they leverage is the property tax abatement to make that pencil out. And so they're able to continue with the low rents.
Okay, so, one more.
Can you go back to that last slide for a second, please? The one more before that one, please. Well, in theory, we could say, hey, why don't we buy this 81 unit apartment complex with our La Casa funds? If we were so inclined for the grand steal of 14 million. Right? Is that something we could?
Yeah, theoretically, that's what preservation is. So PPO, production preservation, that's exactly what that is. Yeah.
81 units ready to go?
Yeah, it's a
What would
great.
it cost to build that today? A lot more than.
Yeah, the only issue is the right now the legislation is so strict that it's not, we're still trying to figure out how to pencil this out.
Right.
But theoretically, if it pencils out, we could do this.
But you have to have the trust,
Yes.
The truck, yeah, okay, yes.
right? That's the key thing. You have to have the trust. We as the
We're
crowd
actually
cannot buy
talking
it.
to a Manhattan Beach equity group that specializes in this. A woman-owned, black-owned company, really awesome. She did actually the Costco project. Have you guys heard about that?
Oh, were they
Where
putting
built a
units on
house
top of
yeah.
Costco?
Yeah, that's coming
Like
out the
brilliant.
beach. Yeah, it's really cool. And so, yeah, and so she's really, this is her bread and butter.
Ah,
Okay, so tonight, did you want to, the decision is to, yes, create or wait
Motion.
probably a month?
I think I
Get more info?
Made a motion and I second.
Okay.
Motion to recommend.
Yeah, and I
Okay, there's a
second.
motion to recommend and a second.
Can we, with this motion,
Recommend formation of the trust.
Recommend
Yeah.
the cities consider the formation.
and with this motion,
Will
we
the
would go back to your, we would send something to your councils and ask them to please agendize it, and then we would be there.
Okay, so I think for this one, I'm gonna do a roll call so everybody is clear. Carson is not present. El Segundo?
yes.
Medina?
Yes.
Hawthorne?
Yes.
Hermosa?
Aye.
Inglewood's not present. Lawndale?
Yes.
Lamita, not present. LA City's not active. LA County District 2,
Abstain.
District 4,
Abstain.
Manhattan Beach, not present. PV Estates,
I decline. I'd rather wait.
Is that an abstention then?
Extension.
Rancho Palos Verdes, not present. Redondo Beach,
Yes.
Rolling Hills?
I would either say no if it's based on the current version of the JPA, because that's all we have to define it.
Rolling Hills Estates?
Is that a no? That's a no.
I'll just say no then. That's the only thing we have to define the terms.
Rolling Hills Estates?
Yes, with the promise that we could reword some of that.
And Torrance?
Yes.
Okay, guys. She'll just.
Yeah, well, we need to pass them.
Drum roll.
We need 7, right? We get 7?
I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes, it just passes.
Just pass. Okay, thank you very much. We are very over the time, so if we can speed through these homeless services.
Oh, yeah, you have another item, which is another very important item.
You want to postpone it to next one?
The emergency vouchers?
Yeah. 'Cause it's probably
Don't you
the
need
third, fourth time.
you don't need to do any action on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Informational.
I just wanted, this is about the fact that the federal government HUD has withdrawn a lot of vouchers, and according to Ronson, there could be as many as 900 to 1,000 people in the South Bay that are currently housed that we will no longer be able to house. And that's by June or something?
It's,
That's-
yeah, it's exactly what Zane's talking about earlier. So it's not just one family in Redondo, it's 900. It could be a lot. The numbers are still in flux, but yeah. It's about, for just one program, it's about 5,000 all of LA County. And then there's this other issue that's another 5,000, or it could actually be 8,000. So I'm still figuring out the numbers. Was gonna do a presentation, but we can come back in December to give a full briefing on it.
I wanted him to tell you so that you know, because more and more is gonna come out about this. And it does affect the South Bay, and it will affect your cities, and there's nothing that we seem to be able to do about it. So we'll come back and talk to you more about it.
I gotta imagine that it affects the red states as well, like, if not, do we have any data on that to try to make an appeal to the federal government? Since things are so party oriented these days.
Red states too.
As a
I mean,
cog,
I don't know that it makes
Appeal
any
to the
difference.
federal government as a cog?
Uh,
They're pacing in the hallway, wondering, what are they thinking of Torrance?
Okay.
So should we?
How many in the South Bay?
Well, does that, no, what we're saying.
Could be 1,000.
We think it was.
Okay, so we're gonna move on, senior services.
No, we postponed the meeting, the next one till the new year, so. that's
Next
updated.
meeting is in January.
Okay, we're gonna move along to transportation reports.
Mike Bulkey is on here. Mike, do you want to give us any kind of report?
Okay, move along.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, there, no, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, Mayor Butts had to go to I guess a funeral service, in Hawthorne. I'll read off my notes that I had written for him. This is a split end of the year meeting cycle. So we just did the, committees yesterday and today, and the board will meet December 4th, to do the full board meeting. Mayor Butt sits on planning and programming and construction. And there was only one item, contract on construction, but I'll focus on the relevant issue for the COG was the issue of the open and slow street grant approvals. They did cycles 6 and 7 were combined this year to address the board directive to maximize opportunities for the World Cup and Olympic Games. As a result, 10 million in Prop C was identified for a competitive open and slow streets grant opportunity to support the goals of the program. A total of 49 applications requesting approximately 18.5 million were received for cycles 6 and 7 by the application of October 10th deadline. Through the adopted budget, though the adopted budget is usually 2.5 million allocated annually, this year they were able to put together 10 million, so 5 million for each cycle. And for the South Bay, both Torrance and Englewood were awarded grants in the amounts they requested. Unfortunately, both Hawthorne and Carson's proposals fell below the competitive cutoff points. The board heard and received a great deal of support for this program. We got hundreds of emails. Director Horvath brought in an amending motion to the staff recommendation to instruct staff to draft a report to consider making the program permanent with a guaranteed funding amount. Mayor Butts wholeheartedly supports the program. However, since the funding has been dependent on Prop C availability, the mayor made a friendly amendment that the report back will also contain a cost analysis on the sustainability of relying on Prop C. As you know, Metro is stretched extremely thin in terms of their financial sustainability, with the problems of not being able to adequately fund the operations and maintenance. And it's going to have a really huge impact as we go forward with the affordability of projects that they want to build. Not only are they affordable to build, but even more so, once they're built, are they affordable to operate and maintain? And he's going to be discussing that issue once again with the CEO on Monday. The other item that they approved on planning and programming was the programming request for up to 218 million in the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, the RTIP, including their target share of LA County request for 134 million and another 83 million as an interest-free advance from LA County's estimated future STIP shares. The other issue that came up, which you may have heard on the news, is the LA Gondola came up today at executive management. It's pretty controversial, but Metro's role here is only to prepare the EIR, and in this case, the supplemental EIR. And so, because the jurisdiction for approval lies with the city of LA, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, state parks, and I think it's AQMD. But so basically what they did is set aside the original FEIR and the certification and move to recertify the SEIR and the CEQA documents and everything. So as far as Metro is concerned, their job was just to prepare the EIR. And so now it goes over to the other jurisdictions, whether or not they're going to approve or disapprove it. And that's pretty much all I have. If someone wants to ask any questions.
Zane?
Do you see when this, Mike, do you see when the sea line extension consideration is going to occur at the board? Is it January?
Well, the sea line is going to come up beginning of the year. I don't want to prognosticate too much. It might come up January, might come up February. And this is one of the issues that comes up what I was saying a few moments ago is Metro's financial stability and sustainability. And there's going to be a lot of issues on the sea line in terms of how it is going to be somewhat of, I'm just speaking off the cuff, my own thoughts here. I've talked with Mayor Butts, but his concerns are going to be whether or not you can build it in the first place, and then whether or not you can run it. And so those are questions that he's going to be raising when the FER comes to the Planning and Programming Committee. But I can't tell you whether it's going to be January, February, or even March. I'm not sure if that helps.
And TBD. Chris, did you want to say something? I think you had.
No, I was jumping ahead of Sea Line, but I'll wait.
Okay.
I love talking about it. I can't.
Okay.
Can't wait. Can't get enough.
So wrap that up and go to the Inglewood Transit Connector.
Yeah, so I've an update on the water taxi. So that was another thing that was hurting today. So the water, just for those of you who don't aware, there was a proposal to have a water taxi in Pedro to Long Beach for the Olympics. And so a feasibility study was presented today. Anyways, we're really past time, but long and short of it is Councilmember Hahn, excuse me, Supervisor Hahn made a motion to continue looking into the feasibility of it, to develop an industry engagement process and have a reverse pitch where we essentially go to providers and tell them what we're looking for and see what people can provide for us. We want to look at special event funding options, public-private cost sharing, sponsorship models, to have the service that would happen. It'd be over 47 days from the beginning of Olympic Games, 2-week break between Paralympic and Olympic and to the Paralympic Games. So we're looking into all of that, but I wanted to tell you all that moved forward.
Where would that funding come from?
And so
And will SB 79 put a tower on top of that pier?
So part of the motion was that no funding should be paid to it from bus or rail operations. So.
Oh, then where else would it come from?
So, they're looking at special events, short-term funding options. People would pay for the tickets and other things like that. And it could be through, Harbor Breeze and Catalina Express, could be different models, so.
Okay, we're gonna go to two.
Next one is the Inglewood Transit Connector. On the Inglewood Transit Connector, we gave them two kinds of funds. We gave them Measure R Transit and we gave them SIP funds, which is the Sub-Regional Equity Funds. And on the Sub-Regional Equity Funds, there was a provision that by March of 2024, they had to come back and tell us that they were actually going to build the project. They, in March of 2024, they asked for an extension to October. I could actually ask you to do this.
No, go right ahead.
Oh, okay, so they asked for an extension to October. October, as you probably have noticed, has come and gone. And so now they're asking for an extension to next September, which would be the end of this fiscal year. They're still trying to get their plans and their money together. The way the motion read originally was if the money does not get used for the Inglewood Transit Connector, it goes back to the Sentinella grade separation, but there's also a question as to whether they need the Sentinella grade separation. So if we don't extend this, we have to discuss what would happen to this money, but they're asking for an extension and the Transportation Committee agreed with the extension. So
They did not make the formal recommendation.
they didn't make a formal recommendation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We punted it directly to this August body.
That's right. So we're asking you to make a decision on whether to extend to next September.
So on background, remember, this is about $106 million is at play here that they were using originally as a backstop to qualify for funding, not for operations and maintenance of their project. So they are still, what we'd be doing is giving them another year to continue to hold on to that while they matured their project around bus lines and would report back at the end of the fiscal year to tell us where they are. Decide if we want to go Consider what we want to do next year.
I have a question. So are there any projects that would not get funded, but for the extension to September 2026?
Currently, no. All of this funding has always been either allocated to the Sentinel grade separation and then to the ITC project.
Yeah, all of this money lives within Inglewood projects. It's just shuffling between two Inglewood projects right now. But there is opportunity cost for it if it's something like, hey, this was not going to mature and we would like to pull that back and reallocate it. But they have a project underway with design to move forward to support these major events and get people in and out of the venues.
But I think another answer is we did have to do a call for projects. We are funding the projects that came in, right? There's no projects that are unfunded.
Correct. This is
right.
this is a pot of money that we've not ever opened up to anything besides those two projects. And so I think if the board doesn't want to continually do this extension stuff, you would then have a decision of, do we want to do a call for projects? Is there some other mega project we want to fund?
And theoretically, this money isn't even available till 2040, so it's discounted in the year it would be used.
Right.
So. Okay.
Motion to extend to September 2026.
Second.
Part of our conditional approval was the coordination piece with Hawthorne. That from our transportation meeting, I don't think has been done to date. Alex, to your knowledge, has there been any coordination? Because that was.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from them since the last time they came to us for that extension until October, right? And then they have this idea about the Lennox, the Lennox station, to call it, at the 111 and Hawthorne Boulevard, that is Hawthorne. It's not Inglewood, it's not Lennox. But they seems like they left us behind, not coming talking to us. I don't know why, but we were trying to talk to them to extend that one bus lane from the Market Street all the way from the Sulphate all the way to Rosecrans, right? Instead of stopping at the 111 and Hawthorne Boulevard, because we see impact on our street traffic, right? During the games, if NFL concerts, it is a backlog of traffic going all the way south to Redondo and Lawndale and Gardena, right? Because even Gardena bus comes through Crenshaw, turn into Prairie, turn into El Segundo, then turn into Prairie, all our streets. But they have not addressed our problem of backup traffic.
So could we add that stipulation or condition to the motion that coordination, the impact coordination with the surrounding cities?
Well, particularly Hawthorne, right?
Yes, must be a part of the piece that comes to us at the end of this.
Yes. So amended the motion.
This would be the second to agree.
I have
Yes.
This would be the third extension. Why does it have to be it's gonna be 6 months?
Yeah, that I was asking.
We asked that, I mean, I asked that. And he said that, Mayor Bud said that there would be no more information, that they need this time to gather the information.
There were two pieces. There's the timing of it, that it just moves slowly and they wouldn't have enough tangible information. And also because a lot of the things are asking for federal funding pieces, we tied it to the start of the federal fiscal year, because ideally any of those pieces would be budgeted in and they could report out.
We did ask that question.
So you think 9 months is reasonable?
I think to September is reasonable for it.
And are we leaving the door open to more and more extensions, or has there been any discussion if this is your last extension?
Well, there are decision points in it. This is basically an extension and gathering information to get to the decision points. So I'd have to look at our roadmap, but there are these gateways in the roadmap of the project.
The fully funding of the ITC train was their main piece.
Remember that.
And they've asked for these extensions while they figure out the new project.
Okay.
There is one thing you could add to it, though. You could say that you want them to come back and that it's an extension, you want to know what's happening with that. You want them to cooperate with the neighboring cities, and you want them to report on the need for the Sentinel grade
I was
separation.
just gonna ask that, yes. Because they're essentially, holding money for two projects. Only one of them ultimately is going to move forward, I'm assuming. So.
It's an A or a B, right? If the rapid transit piece in whatever shape or form comes to fruition, that obviates the need for Sentinella grade extension. If they cannot do the first one, then you need Sentinella and you need to be able to use it. But they couldn't do construction on both at the same time, just because of where the two projects come together. So there is, I mean, I can see their argument.
And there may be question whether the set a grade is,
Can even be done.
and it can't be done before the Olympics.
Oh, no.
And
That's a 2032 project.
And Metro has only identified up to design funding for it.
Oh.
So and this money would not fully fund the construction of that
That's
project
why you
anyways.
asked that.
So it may not even be a viable project in reality either, which is then would be open, what do we want to do with?
So let me say that, for example, we might submit one project to the SBCCOG to extend that line from 111 and Hawthorne to Rosecrans, right? So we might submit our own proposal to do the work without waiting for Inglewood to come up with, because I think they're just basically waiting for more money to come. I don't think they have the money. And that is what they're trying to fishing somewhere, and they're not catching a fish.
Okay, so what was the motion at this point? What's it been amended to?
What I have is to grant the extension and for them to coordinate with the impacted cities around them, particularly.
And then.
Ask them to report back earlier if they get earlier information.
So we discussed that at the Transportation Committee meeting, and
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
we discussed at the Transportation Committee meeting, and there seemed to be consensus that when they have a significant development to report, they would come back. Otherwise, to just have them come and do, essentially they did a dog and pony show. There was no new information last time with their consultants, so.
They were just about to go into, I think, the bid process, if I remember correctly. And so I think what they wanted to do is get through that process, have the negotiations with the bidders. And then at the end of that point, they'd have harder financial costs and more concrete timelines, that kind of thing. That they thought 6 months would be questionable if they would be done with all of that process.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about changing the date, but I'm just saying, set it to September, but that they're to report back if they do get earlier information prior to that date. So we don't just wait to that date and then, oh yeah, we had this 3 months ago,
They wanted to ask.
The maker of the motion, was that you, Zane? If you'd be amenable to that additional provision about the viability of the grade
Sentinel grade
Sentinel grade separation project.
Tell us about the viability?
Yeah, because right now there are two projects, A or B. It's not an and or.
It's not
Yeah, it is if then.
If
Right.
then,
If
okay.
and
If then not.
If then, right.
Then not. Sure.
Okay, so
Ipso
assuming then when we get the report in the 9 months or so, it will be in
Not.
if then. Not.
but yeah.
So you wanted to say that? You wanted to say that the Sentinel project is dead?
I would just clarify that the city of Inglewood is not the lead agency for the Sentinel grade separation, so they might not say that it's a viable project or not. What you might want to ask them is, do they think that it's necessary for their city? Because there is no lead agency for that project, so they may not be able to tell you it's viable.
It's another one of those.
So,
It's just like the 405.
Oh, dear Lord.
well,
applicability.
then you should ask them to identify a lead agency for the project and how viable is it?
Are we spending any more money for that then?
We have not contributed anything to the Sentinel grade separation. Metro's funded that all themselves
Getting
thus
more
far.
Okay.
But there's nothing beyond the design phase, and Metro would not move forward with it anytime before the Olympics.
The more I learn, the less I understand.
Okay, so we have the motion and the second. Are you ready to vote?
Any opposition? Any abstentions?
Okay, moving along.
Okay, there's one more approval that we have here. For the first time, a city is actually contracting with us, the city of Lomita, to do outreach services in their city for the local travel network. And so, city of Lomita, I think, has already passed this contract. And the reason I did not put it on the consent calendar, which I normally would have done, is that I wanted to let you know that this is happening. We are actually doing outreach services with their outreach person, their firm that they're having for outreach in the city of Lomita on the local travel network. So we ask your approval of the contract.
Our attorney.
Motion.
Yeah.
Motion.
Okay,
So
motion for a
second.
Any opposition? Any abstentions?
Okay, then I will very fast go through the local travel network presented in Hawthorne about micromobility, and I thought it went very, very well. We're meeting with the Hawthorne staff again to talk about implementation opportunities. We're transitioning our focus into actual behaviors. What we're really trying to do, everybody knows you can ride these things, I guess. We have to start explaining that, I don't know if you've heard this statistic, but 135,000 vehicles, 135,000 trips in the South Bay are half a mile or less, and they're being done in cars. So we have to do something about that. That doesn't make any sense. So we're doing a behavioral study of that, or analysis of that. And on the Caltrans grant, tomorrow we're going to be submitting a grant to Caltrans for sustainable communities. And it's to look at the potential sites and strategies for micromobility parking. What that means is when you go to a shopping center, is there a safe place to lock up your bike? Is there a safe place or is there preferential parking for a neighborhood electric vehicle? How can we, with these kinds of things, incentivize people to actually use these because they know when they get to where they're going, they can safely and maybe incentivize park them safely. So that's happening there. I'm so sorry, Kim Turner was here. Kim is the general manager of Torrance Transit. And I was going to tell you all that, and I told her I would say this, Torrance Transit, we can congratulate Councilman Kaji. Torrance Transit received the 2025 California Transit Association Small Operator Transit Innovation Award for their Connect Transit On-Demand Curb-to-Curb rideshare service. This is the second innovation award they've received from the CTA. And so congratulations to you.
After the academy.
Okay, thank you. So then we're going to go on to, I'll go on to REAP on the mobility hubs study. We've received an in-depth origin and destination analysis, which is at the census block level. It shows the quantity of trips arriving and departing from each block group that was analyzed. They're going to determine strategic sites for mobility hubs that capture the most amount of trips. And they're meeting with a mobility hub operator to discuss what kind of amenities people look for in a mobility hub, operations and amenities. So that's proceeding with our consultant. On commercial redevelopment, a beta tool has been established that will allow cities to toggle filters and view commercial sites that have the potential for redevelopment to be completed. And that's a tool that your cities can use. I think it was presented to the community development directors. We're in the process of shortlisting 7 sites across the South Bay that we're going to be doing a fit and feasibility study with, and we're going to be meeting with developers in January to talk about this as well. On the South Bay Fiber Network, we're exploring still new owners. We're waiting for a pro forma from one of the companies that's most interested, and we're working with American Dark Fiber to determine whether this is a viable proposal. And our work order in Hawthorne, which is our very last work order on our fiber original network, is about to be closed off finally. So then the next thing is Kim, really fast.
Yes, I would just remind you that we have our Energy and Climate Recognition Awards program. If you have an RSVP, please do. It is on Thursday, December 11th from 11 to 1 in the city of Lawndale. We saw the site. It's very exciting. Also, just wanted to let you know, we got some good news. We have now made it to the second phase of the grant application for the biodiversity plan for the South Bay, which will include projects. We need to have projects at the city level. And so we're going to be reaching out to all of your cities, or I shouldn't say all of your cities, the cities that have the ideal project locations that meet the highest points for the grant, we'll be reaching out to you and asking you for projects. This would be 100% funded by the grant. It's through Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, and it's being paid for by the county's Office of Sustainability to a consultant that's writing the grant for us. So we're really excited about it. We've made to the next level. So I think we're gonna get some funding. But I want to make sure we get good projects in there also, so.
What does the grant go towards? What are the projects?
So we're identifying the projects right now, but the idea was that we would have a biodiversity plan for the South Bay that would look at all the open spaces that city own and then make recommendations that to inform you when you're doing, like pulling up your grass and things like that, like and looking at your medians. So they don't want to do just planning money, they want to do projects. So the areas are the more disadvantaged communities, and they want them to be close to like schools and recreation trails and things like that. So we got some actually really good information from some of the cities, like Lomita gave us some really good projects. They also could do tree planting. So I'll send something out. We're gonna need some specific information. The grant is due like the first part of January. It's really fast. But I don't think actually Redondo Beach is gonna have sites that would be competitive.
Right.
But
Yeah,
hopefully we'll could do lessons
But
learned that bring back.
but the plan will serve the entire South Bay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
General Assembly, we've board earlier this month, was the steering committee selected the West Drift Hotel. We're moving forward with that contract right now. Yeah, their in-kind contribution is $40,000 in waived fees and everything, and so we're gonna recognize them as a golden sponsor, like we would any other in-kind contribution. Cash, we've actually raised 17,500 so far, so it's starting to roll in. Programs kind of starting to come together. We spoke with Alan Sanford, and he's going to participate in some capacity. He's also the way we're kind of looking at it right now is after the exhibit hall in the morning, have a panel of kind of big picture, big thinking, a keynote speaker, and then a very hyper local panel in the afternoon of how does your city's public safety make sure your city's these events go off safe? How do you deal with the transportation? Like, what is it that cities actually need to learn to not just do mega events like the Super Bowl or Olympics, but things that are smaller like beach life or even more local. And normal, I think 9 to 3-ish time frame, but we'll keep you all updated as the program kind of solidifies a little bit more. But if you have potential speakers in mind, let us know. Sponsors, let us know. And we'll just keep you posted.
And I was saying, because I dream a lot, that if you have athletes or famous people in your cities that would agree to just come out, just say hello, this is about arts and entertainment and culture. And if they just be there and on hand we could feature them somehow. We have a lot of talent in the South Bay, and I think a lot of people move here to stay anonymous, but if they don't want to be anonymous for a day, we'd really love to feature them.
Talk to Mayor Butts. He knows them all.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things about the West Drift is that's where the teams, I guess, stay. They house a lot of the sports teams. So, okay, the AI Forum Series, we had a meeting. We're going to have to be planned the next meeting. I think people are most interested in policies on AI. So we're going to be looking at that. And then we also have our January 22nd cybersecurity, which I hope you've seen the flyer for. We have the FBI and Derek Lazaro, who's an expert in cybersecurity. And then on the legislative proposals, we talked about the amendments to the Housing Trust, and we were also talking about asking our legislators, they've just removed the EV rebate, and the CEC has also eliminated the EV bike rebate. But we were saying if a community like ours has made a commitment to micromobility, we could show that we made that commitment, we'd like to have a pilot that we would get a rebate for micromobility vehicles in the South Bay. So we thought we'd float that with our legislators and see what they think of that. And I have nothing, the other thing is, you want to talk about that? Oh, and I was asked, Kim did mention the December 11th, but I was asked specifically, we really need your RSVP. And this is to celebrate what your staff has done. So we hope you'll come and help us recognize them. You want to talk about?
Jeff Kierden's not on anymore, but we just confirmed earlier today I think it's the 11th annual South Bay Legislative Meet and Greet that we do with Cal Cities and the SBCCOG for January 30th at the Nakano Theater. Thank you again, Torrance, for hosting us. We will all be sending out the flyer once it's put together, hopefully either next week or after Thanksgiving. And then we will start working on inviting our legislators. And I think it's always a good event for the council members and the business community to hear from the legislators directly. So
We also have a legislative briefing on January 8th, I think.
oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, we have
it
a
is certainly,
legislative, yeah, January 8th. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Now just remember that next month, there's the steering and board meeting on Monday, the 8th together. But otherwise, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Can I throw something on for South Bay Aerospace Alliance before you leave? Like, you're gonna be, if you participants, I know Paige is working on this with us. We are gonna be making a pitch to the Secretary of the Air Force's office at the end of January in regards to concerns of Space Systems Command leaving LA Air Force Base. So you'll get weird emails and random emails, but the gist of it is trying to address the risk of that command leaving and cutting a $9 billion hole in our regional economy.
Yeah, we took, for those of you that are new, the last stretch of the aerospace, to the Air Force Base, we were in a coalition with the chambers and the Workforce Investment Board, and we worked really hard. It was a major initiative, and we got very involved. So I've said to Tom Lasser that he should notify us whenever anything that needs to get done, and we'll lend our support.
I think the concern is that it would be like a BRAC without the formal BRAC process, which gets very
The
political.
base would stay, the command would just leave it, so they could get away around the congressional issue of moving a base, just take the command.
Depends how upset our dear leader is at Gavin.
Well, so that is, we're gonna have, it's a whole nother, yeah, no, but believe me, I have 95,000 of these conversations, happy to take it offline, don't wanna hold everyone hostage here. But just, so if you hear random things about it, and like I show up demanding some random piece of information about your tax base, like, that's what it's coming from.
Meeting adjourned, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You made that joke about not being